Hi everyone, welcome to After Dark Analysis. Today will be the second part of Critical Android and I discussing music choices in horror films. Speaking of kind of oddity children, the film Spider Baby uses a theme song that really does set up the plot to the film, and it's sung by Lon Chaney Jr., which adds to that creep factor. And they set up the fact that Spider Baby, it's also called The Maddest Story Ever Told, is an alternative title. And he talks about how they're going to prepare for a cannibal feast. But again, they do it in that very jovial, very novelty way.
Yeah, I don't know this one, so I can't really comment too much about it, but I do know having Lon Chaney kind of representing it, automatically adds that horror vibe.
It is about a family that has a genetic defect that causes them to mentally regress to a childlike state. So we essentially have these fully grown, it's two girls and a boy played by a very young Sid Haig, which is weird because I didn't know Sid Haig was ever young. It's like Angela Lansbury. Seeing her in Gaslight's weird. But they mentally regress, so you essentially have these fully grown adults with the minds of children. And the issue is they backpedal to almost a fetal or pre-birth state, which involves a level of I'm hungry, I'll eat, which leads to cannibalism. Because the theme song's lyrics are screams and moans and bats and bones, teenage monsters in the haunted homes, the ghost on the stairs, the vampires bite, better beware there's a full moon tonight. Cannibal spiders creep and crawl, boys and ghouls having a ball. Frankenstein, Dracula, and even the mummy are sure to end up in somebody's tummy. Take a fresh rodent, some toadstools and weeds, and an old owl, and the young one she breeds. Mix in 7 legs from an 8-legged beast, and you're all set for a cannibal feast.
That list of ingredients is a little hard to come by.
Yeah, just a little bit, and it's based off the fact that one of the girls likes to play a game she calls Spider, which involves her putting nuts around people and stabbing them with knives, because she doesn't understand the concept of life and death.
Oh, okay. Well, that song really doesn't capture that kind of viciousness.
Yeah, it's not really a spoiler for me to say any of that, because A, it's in the theme song, and B, you see that within maybe less than a minute or two of the movie starting. It's the first time she plays Spider.
Wow, okay, that's a little twisted.
It's weird, because it was 64, and it's kind of low on the gore, but you know what happened.
Wow, well, I don't have any other novelty theme songs to follow up with on that one.
So I guess move on to, they're technically themes, but they keep reoccurring.
Well, yeah, and instrumental themes, like Halloween, for example, that's a classic one that almost anybody who knows anything about horror, or at least listens to a Halloween mixtape, heard the theme song to Halloween. It's pretty instantly recognizable, and give credit to John Carpenter for not only creating the movie but also creating the music for it out of necessity for the film not being scary enough. It just did not impress some of the execs that he had shown it to, one in particular, and then when he composed the music for it to kind of heighten the tension and drama, it changed the tone of the film considerably and made it better, despite the fact that the only thing he changed was adding in that music.
Exactly. It adds to that tension, and like you said, it's so ingrained at this point. You listen to a Halloween mixtape, our neighbors have a stand-up thing, and it looks nothing like Michael Myers. It has nothing to do with Halloween, aside from it's a Halloween decoration, but it plays the theme from Halloween.
The thing that makes it effective is the same thing that makes the themes for Jaws and The Exorcist also effective. Interestingly enough, when you listen to the theme from Exorcist, it has kind of a similar feel to the theme from Halloween, in that they both have a very simple piano melody, or keyboard melody that expands upon that and then adds in different instrumentation. But they are based off of a very quick, repetitive piece of music, a riff of sorts, that just repeats over and over and over. That piano refrain, you just hear it constantly, whether it's in both The Exorcist or Halloween. And repetition wears on somebody. When you listen to it and you just keep hearing something repeating and repeating, it starts to eat away at you, because repetition creates tension. When you hear something over and over and over, you start to feel some sort of irritation or annoyance, but when it's paired with something that's more like visually stunning or visually arresting, suddenly that repetition now goes along with a sense of tension. It's like it's got to change eventually. Something has to happen. Sure enough, it does.
And it also does play in with our whole childhood talk earlier, is most children's songs, if you look at them, are very basic melody. And again, they're repeated heavily, like you said. That's why our parents constantly screamed at us to shut up, or at least mine
Yes.
did. So we have that baseline instinct of just liking that repetitive melody and eventually wearing on people, because that's what's going to happen in adulthood. It is a very childlike thing to do. In the film Pontypool, when people start repeating the same phrases and they become distorted, he says, when I was a child, I used to repeat the same thing over and over and over again until it became incomprehensible. So we're seeing that come back again from the weaponized sound.
Yeah, and the same thing happens too with Jaws, except on that one we can actually hear more of the progression, where you have that deep, dark cello sound of just the two notes of doo-doo, doo-doo, and it gradually starts getting faster and faster. And it's, again, that repetition, but in this case you have the repetition with the speed increasing gradually over time. That creates the escalating sense of tension before the melody starts to expand upon it. But it's still based off of a sense of repetition.
Absolutely, because as I've put out on this channel, I didn't see Jaws until last year, but I knew that song. I've known that song since elementary school. And you get that kind of pop and jump that we normally do in a jump scare.
Right. And then, speaking of kind of the jump scare, but when it comes to sound cues, you also hear this in Psycho, with that very memorable sting of the string section that goes along with the stabbing or the murder. Everybody knows that iconic selection of the strings, with the high-pitched, almost like screaming of them. But again, it's a very quick, repetitive sound, which heightens tension and danger because of its, not just the high frequency of it, but because it's so quickly repeating itself.
And I always point this out, is Psycho, that murder didn't happen until about 40 minutes in.
Right.
So the entire beginning of the film, we have the red herring established where she steals the money. She's going to hide out. She's actually going to go confess before Norman stabs her. But the score changed. It was, I believe it was more of a classical, I don't want to say music because that's completely just an insult to the score. But we see a more classical scored film until we get the shower stab and you get that scream of the strings that lets you know, no, this has totally changed gears.
Yes, it's a very dramatic moment in the film, one that was, kind of given away by Hitchcock in the trailer for it, a very unique trailer where he's just describing what's going to happen in the movie. But seeing it all put into play, and then hearing that, and that sound has been emulated time and time and time again, to where even if you don't know the movie, you know that sound.
Yeah, because speaking of emulated sounds, we do have a couple of them that do those. Is Friday the 13th with the
Yes.
Which, from my understanding, was actually a distortion of her saying, "He'll kill ma."
Yes, that's what I understand as well.
So they bring that back throughout the entire franchise.
Yeah, and the score for that film is based off of the string section more than, when it comes to the big slasher films. Halloween obviously revolves more around the piano, the keyboard. Nightmare on Elm Street revolves more around, based off the time that it came out, more of a keyboard synthesized feeling. The original Friday the 13th is based more around a string section. The main theme is more orchestral, and that gives you a different kind of a feel for things than the piano does. I don't want to say it's more or less haunting or atmospheric, but it just gives you a different kind of atmosphere. And frankly, that sound, that works better with the lighter arrangement of the strings than it would with the more heavy-handed piano and synth.
Exactly. That's our warning shot. It's like Jaws where we had that build, but that kick ma is just, Jason's there and somebody's about ready to die.
Yes. It's a wonderful audio cue that, unlike most sound effects, if you will, most of the time a sound effect in a horror film is used to create a kind of a startling jump scare. This is not. This is an atmospheric cue that creates a completely different kind of a sense of horror than if you were using it to startle the audience. This one lets itself sink in and lets you know that something's happening, and then let the action unfold, as opposed to oh, we need to sound this right now very loudly with the action because otherwise it wouldn't be scary enough.
Exactly, and you were talking about the differences between what instruments they focused on, and that's the thing about horror, is you put things in the right context. Anything's scary. This concludes part 2 of our look at music in horror films. Join us next time and we will be talking about how choirs, synthesizers, and religion play into musical choices in horror. As always, if you like what you're seeing, please hit like, comment, subscribe. If you don't like what you're seeing, please leave a comment and let me know. Thank you.